The church universally right now has turned into something that I simply do not understand. I don't even call myself a Christian anymore. That'll upset some people. I'm a Christ follower. The lack of empathy in our country now, in our culture now, is something like I've never seen in my 63 years. We have churches that have asked us to no longer come into their parking lot to pick people up.
Yep.
Because
it doesn't look.
It's a bad optic. What I got out of 4 years of seminary was not what most people would have expected. After I got out, I was enthralled with wanting to take on hell with a water pistol. And I just really thought that everybody in the Christian community thought this way.
So many times churches do these drives for nonprofits and things like that. And now that I'm sitting on this side, those drives don't really add up to much.
James 1:22, where it says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says."
I feel like they put more work into painting the picture of what they're going to do than what they actually do.
I have never once preached from the pulpit about politics. I am shocked every day that we feel as a society that we have to demonize someone to explain our own failures.
Hey everyone, my name is Mindy Hungerford with We Are Runner Garden, and I'm joined today by Pastor Scott, the founder and CEO of Matthew's Hope, as well as Shelley Bradford, who's the president and executive director of Matthew's Hope. I'm filling in for Tracy Lewis today. So let's get started on episode 67 of Straight Talk, No BS with Matthew's Hope, presented by Imagine Marketing. We will be discussing today the relationship between churches and homelessness. Pastor Scott, drop some Bible knowledge on us. What does the Bible say about homelessness?
Let me say a couple of things, because what I got out of 4 years of seminary was not what most people would have expected. I did not come out a educated derelict or or did I come out memorizing scripture. But there's a few scriptures that I took to heart that I think make a lot of sense. And that's one is where God tells us to love God and love his people.
Yeah.
My favorite scripture that I lived with for a long time and used to wear a wristband until my divorce, because everybody liked to remind me of it after that, was James 1:22, where it says, "Do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says."
Yeah, be the word.
Okay? Be the word. Mm-hmm. I think in today's church, and if I get some blowback from this, I'm fully prepared to talk with any pastor or church leader that would like to either come on here and talk about what we're talking about, or meet with me personally. But the church universally right now has turned into something that I simply do not understand. You know, I didn't go to seminary. I had a sales and marketing career for 20 years. I worked my whole life to get away from homelessness because I lived that life. Had the burnt orange BMW, the house facing the lake, and all the things that I had wanted or thought I wanted. And when I went to seminary and God pulled me out of my sales and marketing career, after I got out, I was enthralled with wanting to take on hell with a water pistol. And I just really thought that everybody in the Christian community thought this way.
Felt the same way.
Yeah. So it's like I'm going to meet with pastors that have been in the pulpit for years. And I met with all types. I mean, independent guys, non-denominational, the Baptists, the Episcopals. I met with some Catholic priests, the Methodists, the Lutherans. I met with all of them. I wanted to really embrace this whole thing. And then what I found out over time, especially after starting Matthew's Hope 15 years ago, is that often churches operate like they're gangs. The Bloods can't have lunch with the Crips.
It's a club.
Or our church has to have the name at the banner. The first thing I realized in starting Matthew's Hope is I had planted a church called Next Community Church in Winter Garden.
I remember that
church. Yeah. And we were very outreach driven. Part of that, the pastor often drives that, because that was my heart, is I thought that's what we were supposed to be doing is serving and loving others. And but I realized that when I tried to do that with the homeless, that churches weren't going to support that financially and what have you. When I became Matthew's Hope, it's his own 501c3. Suddenly we got some attention. Now, the reality of it is less than 1/4 of our budget now. Well, let me take that back. 1/4 of 1%.
I was like, hold on a second.
Sorry,
That's
let
a
me
lot.
rephrase that. 1/4 of 1%, less than that, comes from churches.
Wait, well, that brings me to my next question is
Okay.
what role do churches play in combating our growing homeless crisis? And
I will tell you that we have a couple churches, just a few, that are partners with us through and through. I mean, they're locked in.
they show up.
They
Yes.
show up. They with their time, talents, and treasures. It's all three, and that's what the Lord told us to do: is time, talents, treasures. Um, but I will tell you, as a community, through they attend church, but that's not necessarily why they support us. We're a community-driven organization. We are for the community, by the community. Out of that $15 million budget, now keep in mind, that's just not all money. That includes in-kind services and donations of support items other than money. But it's about a $15 million budget. And that is supported by individuals. 65% or so of our money still comes from the everyday mom and pop, middle class, often lower middle class people, is where the money comes from. The bigger money that comes in, and I call that the icing on the cake. That comes in on occasion, but you can't depend on it. But I will say that we have a lot of people, church-going, God-fearing people that support Matthew's Hope. So I want to separate those two things, because we do have some churches that are fantastic, but we got the most amazing volunteers over the years. We have some of them that have been with us. Gosh, Carol has been with me.
Carol first. Yeah.
Carolyn, yeah. Carolyn has been with me since day one.
Wow.
We're 15 years old. We're growing old together. And that's pretty fascinating. We have had people been with us for years. So I want to be very cautious that I'm not here to beat up the church, but there's things I'm going to say since I've got the platform. And again, I invite anybody to come on here and tell us different. I have never once preached from the pulpit about politics. Never once have I tried to sway somebody on what to vote on.
Right.
Never once did I bring anything about guns or anything else into the ministry. It's just, to me, that's not the place for it. Okay. The place for the ministry isn't even what it's really there for. In my opinion, it's like a MASH unit. Okay. Remember the old show MASH? People come in and they're wounded.
Scott, how old do you think I am?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Well, you're not as old as me. I know that much.
God, no, I don't know
Okay.
what MASH is.
Okay.
That's
really
it's an
don't?
army show, right?
Yes.
Yeah, my grandparents watched it.
Okay.
That make you feel good?
Yeah. So a MASH, a triage unit, let's call it that. We're the emergency room.
Yeah.
People come in and they're wounded and they come to get healed.
Mm.
And then what we do is we prepare them to go back out for battle.
Amen.
That's what the church, I believe, is supposed to be. I believe that Matthew's Hope shouldn't even exist. I've said that for years.
I feel like it kind of poses the question, does Matthew's Hope exist because of a lack, because there was a need, because
absolutely.
because the church is missing, there's a blind spot here, Well, that brings me to my next, question. Shelley, when the time comes for churches to decide what causes to support with their funds, where do you think organizations that work with the unhoused rank on that list of priorities?
I think that they talk like they want it to be a priority, but then when it comes right down to the nuts and bolts of it, we're not seeing the fruits of that at all, which is just, disheartening.
It is
for sure. There's so many organizations that serve the homeless that could, definitely help this situation. But, we certainly don't see that fruits at all. And then, seeing, churches do fundraisers and, try to,
Build the Family Life Center.
Yeah, right. For what? For something that they already have?
Right.
And now
could that Family Life Center, could we help use that Family Life Center during the shelters?
Right. During the Arctic freeze that came nowhere.
Right. Those are the things where churches could stand up and help, and it would not really cost them much.
Well, what role do you believe churches should play in supporting our unhoused, like bare minimum?
Well, I'm just going to say this. First off, we were taught scripturally to here, there, and everywhere. I've done a lot of work in Dominican. I have built school there. I've helped put a water system in at the village there, and I love that mission work. You just got back from Uganda,
Yeah.
okay, and you go over there frequently
Yes.
compared to what most people would think of mission work.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We need to do that, but we need to do it all. One of a couple churches that come to mind right now, since we've been in Brevard, two in particular, one was Georgiana, amazing group of folks that do, a lot of those folks serve here. In fact, our doctor that leads up our medical team here in Brevard, John Rothwell, attends there. But they came out of nowhere and not the church. Not listen. Most churches can't do this, but they gave us a $60,000 check. We'd barely been in the neighborhood,
So they
and said, "What can we do?" Right,
support you.
and then ongoing support. Recently, the church at Vieira. I just viewed a video they're showing. I think this week that they're showing to their congregation that they came out here and shot about Matthew's Hope, and they said. Tell us what you need, dream big.
Wow.
And so I responded and I said, well, what does, dream big really look like? Okay. And I was almost embarrassed by the response I got was, well, our Lord is bigger than anything we can imagine.
Amen.
So just put it out there. And I said, okay. I said, you know what? We have a couple vehicles are expensive. We got a lot of them. And though we don't have any brand new vehicles, they look new because we take very good care of them. I said, if we could get rid of a couple of those payments,
That would be.
and they said, put it out there. So then they put together a team, and they've been here once. They said, what do you need done on your campus that you just can't get done because you don't have the manpower?
Right.
And they came out here and did. They were here for 5 hours or so, did amazing work, and they just planned another 5 hours coming up. So that was a great way to give their people an opportunity to serve, be exposed to what many are afraid of, homelessness, okay, to only leave and say, well, that's not what I thought it was going to be. First, I always hear, oh, it's so clean. And the homeless people we worked with were so nice.
Yeah, they were so friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so I want to go back to so many times churches do these drives for nonprofits and things like that. And now that I'm sitting on this side, those drives don't really add up to much. And we do, and so it is nice to hear places like the Church of Vieira and Georgiana actually doing something because we don't see that we have not historically in Matthew's Hope seen that often.
I just posted, I was talking about Feast and Famine the other day.
Yeah.
I made a post about Feast and Famine. Running a nonprofit ministry is feast or famine. When the cold weather hit, everybody and their mother came out of the woodwork. What can we do? Right.
Right.
Not necessarily, only community wise. Right. And I think I shared in that, it was mostly children leading that, which I'm still getting my head around. But they came out. Here's the problem is they'll forget all about it in a few weeks. It's kind of like there's a reason why New Orleans is not rebuilt yet. Do you know how old I know you do.
Yeah. I'm from there. That's how
I know
in Florida.
I know.
Hurricane Katrina.
I know. How many years? Go ahead. Tell everybody.
That was 2005 that happened. Yeah.
20 years.
20 years ago.
And they're still trying to why? Because the next thing came up and everybody forgot about it.
Oh, for sure.
Now, just a few weeks ago, we were talking about hurricanes hitting in the Carolina mountains and wiping people out.
And that had about 3 days of airtime.
Right.
And it was over.
Yep.
And then California caught fire. Okay. Now, again.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is two things. One is it's almost like watching social media. Okay. That's our attention span.
But that's the name of the game.
Right. Okay. So that's happening. We got a short attention span, but we don't really focus on something for any length of time. Where nonprofits like ours, we if you want to see what's going on in the nonprofit world financially right now, just watch the commercials you're watching.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I can't afford Sarah McLachlan singing in the arms of the angel and have the dog, the one-eyed dog sitting there, okay, and pull your heartstrings. They're putting that out there because they need the money. I can't compete with that. And so what often happens is smaller nonprofits that serve the community get lost in the shuffle.
I feel that in my spirit.
Yeah.
I hear
and And it's tough because people go, well, you did that before. You go, well, I would have loved to have done that again. Unfortunately, I can't. I mean, I've been saying it in a couple podcasts now. I mean, the fact that I'm actually now asking people to bring us detergent,
Right. That
bringing
got
us
down to soap.
underwear.
Got
mean,
down to soap. Soap.
So a $15 million budget, and I'm asking for soap.
I'm literally begging for soap.
Yeah, we're in a strange place right now. But I do think the churches, if they're willing to hear this, is that you pick a mission
and be committed.
To it.
It is a commitment issue. The root of it, everything that I'm hearing you saying, Pastor Scott, is just a commitment issue.
It is.
And we are
and trusting your faith
society, right? Yeah.
In the process. Okay. Because chances are.
And the first time, like maybe you don't have the money to donate, don't panic and withdraw your support. Believe that God's going to provide anyway, walk in faith, and be committed to the cause that you said you were going to be committed to.
And if you're familiar with the talents, the story of the talents, did well with a little more. If you look at the history of Matthew Soap over 15 years, I started this out of my own pocket. I was not a wealthy guy. I had a great job, made a lot of money, cashed in my 401k. It was part of the cost of my marriage. Okay. Where I was everywhere except sometimes where I was supposed to be.
Right.
A lot of roles played. I didn't get paid for 7 years. I got a housing allowance after 5 years, and so I depleted everything I had. But the other side of this is I stepped out in faith because that's what God called me to do. And as we would do well with something, suddenly we had more, and so every time we've been in 15 years of building now, and we're continuing that in a very uncertain economy and a very uncertain, the lack of empathy in our country now, in our culture now, is something like I've never seen in my 63 years. So we're in a very unstable, unclear place. But as we move in faith, we do a little, God does a lot. And I have just found that I'm not a real preachy guy. I'm not a religious guy. I don't even call myself a Christian anymore. That'll upset some people. I'm a Christ follower.
I'm a follower. That's what I would say. I'm a follower.
I'm a follower. Yeah. That's it. You guys go ahead and do whatever, label yourself however you need to. Yeah. But I find that in my own personal life, because my personal life has to work with my professional life. It just does.
Yeah.
I have to step out and faith. And there's times even I'll say to her, I'll go, man, I'm supposed to, this is going on or whatever. And she reminds me, I think God puts people in our path that will help remind us that it's okay, keep going.
Of course he does.
And so, if there's someone naysaying something, then you might want to consider who you're hanging out with.
Well,
okay.
Yeah. I don't want, I don't want, what is it? I don't want fruit from a tree that, that is rotten fruit, right?
Yeah.
That's not bearing good fruit.
Well, even a rotten apple on one side of it can often look really nice on the ground until you pick it up, turn it over. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
well, those that are experiencing homelessness are one of a number of groups that are often stigmatized or demonized even by other groups of people. Why do you guys think that is? Shelley, why do you think that is?
Because they're not pretty. They don't fit in.
Aesthetics.
They're aesthetics. And, one of the
optic. That's the one I hear all the time.
Oh, yeah, right. And that's right. And that's what I was going to say. That's really one of the main reasons why we're here today is because Scott went to churches and said, would you open your doors? And the answer was, what if they come?
I have churches.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Sorry. That was the response was like, but wait, what do we do when they get here?
Yeah.
Because now we're going to have homeless people.
Yeah. Going back 15 years ago, that's exactly what started all this.
Wow.
Now, could I sit back and look at it from a different light of what if they come, we don't know how to help them?
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Let's look at it that way. Let's try to make it prettier, okay, than it really is. I don't think that's really truthfully what was in their heart, but I don't know them, so I don't know that that's what was in their heart. But I feel like that's probably what was in the heart is we don't want to deal with them.
Well, and listen, there is an issue. I mean, the church that my husband and I were actually saved in had a homeless gentleman come in there and try to attack a woman during the day. And it was a tiny town called Lilburn. And, that did not happen. It ended up working out. So there is an issue of safety, but that doesn't mean, like what you said, like the collateral damage. We don't just say, well, fine, we're going to do nothing and we're going to ban everyone and we're never going to find a solution to this because it might be dangerous. They might ruin a bathroom.
The better solution would be get the education.
You can't.
Well, and then what really happened in your church is not that a homeless man walked in. someone with a mental health issue
right.
that was typically from violence, because mental health and violence all go together, that
happened to be homeless.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's one of the narratives we have to change, because I hear about this all the time. A homeless man did it. No, a criminal did that.
Yeah, a criminal, right,
okay?
Right.
We don't identify everybody like that.
Well, like if it was me, would everyone say, well, that artist,
Right.
An artist came and caused the scene at this restaurant.
Right.
You know?
I mean, we literally have, this is true too. We have churches that have asked us to no longer come into their parking lot to pick people up.
Yep.
Because
it doesn't look
it's a bad optic.
Yep.
Well, here we go.
And I'm sitting there going, wait,
I love this question.
We're going to pick them up. We're going to take them to our place, get them the medical care and mental health care they need. We're going to bathe them, put fresh clothing on them, feed them,
give them a little dignity,
help them. Yeah. And love on them like, well, I don't know, like Jesus. Okay.
And probably the only love they get, by the way, in their entire, ever.
Right.
And you are concerned that it's bad optics because they're in your parking lot.
And the sad part, there will be more people angry about what I said than will stick back and say, maybe we need
to think about this.
You can send them my way. It's that girl Mindy on Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
I'll be taking those calls. My next question is, so this brings us this is a great pivot point. The stigmatizing or demonizing groups of people align with your understanding of what Christian values are even supposed to be.
Oh,
obviously not. I mean, yeah. But I mean, you guys see it all the time.
Oh yeah.
I am shocked every day that we feel as a society that we have to demonize someone to explain our own failures.
Mm-hmm.
Look,
it's a really good way to put it.
Let's just touch on this one. The deportation of all these people. Okay. Now, first off, do I believe that we have a problem? We do.
For sure.
However, we have not addressed immigration for over 50 years in our government.
Let me say
now,
this.
The Republicans weren't in charge the whole time.
Yes.
Neither were the Democrats.
Let me say this. My dad's oldest brother ran immigration from the early 80s till the early 2000s. The stories he can tell, it's no one has an understanding. Like you can think it is a train wreck on every level.
And it can be used so heavily politically to sway how people think and what they're doing.
Oh, it's definitely a hot button.
I had a woman say, well, I'm so proud of what's going on right now because I'm tired of reading about immigrants killing old women. And I'm going, well, it's awful because that has happened.
For sure.
But when you look at it statistically, it's a very small percentage. And the other thing I said to get really people fired up, this will give me some letters. If you lost your job to a Mexican, you might want to reconsider what you do for a job. Because here's the thing.
Your skill level.
These folks, one, I can tell you, have a tremendous work ethic in most cases. Not all, like any other.
Well, it's just like any other culture or whatever.
It's like, saying all black people are criminals.
Right.
No, that's not true.
Right.
Okay, all white people are wealthy. That's not true.
Yeah.
I can go on and on. The point being, though, is that it's going to be very interesting because just like the homeless, they're doing the jobs no one else wants. Most of my homeless people at work at night. They work at night because, well, often they're not presentable for the day.
Right.
And there's a need that nobody else wants to fill.
Right.
Such
there's that
as
need there.
Cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning the kitchen.
Mopping up a 7-Eleven, right?
Doing all the stuff that really no average white guy wants to do. We just don't want to. We don't have the work ethic in us that we used to. And people can argue that all day.
I agree with that. Anybody try to hire someone recently?
Oh my God. But then again, that can become a broad stroke because everybody says nobody wants to work. That's not true either.
Right.
But it is true that there's some changes in work ethic. We did, I can remember, especially you go back 2 generations before my mom, so my grandparents, we want to give our children a better life than we had. Yep. And what we've managed to do is create a population of people who feel they're entitled
to everything. Correct.
And never understood what it was like to have your hands bleed so you could keep your job working. And what's happened with some of the immigrants, again, I want to be clear on this. We have a problem. We should be addressing it. But I will tell you that we met with one of our donors the other day that owns a large, very large development construction company. They're struggling right now because they can't get any drywallers and painters
Yeah.
because that's who they were. And these weren't illegal people. These were people that left in fear of what's going on right now.
Oh, I hate to hear that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you see these different things. Again, before everybody gets mad at me and says, oh, that liberal. First off, if you knew me, you would know that I'm a pretty conservative guy. However, I have a heart for Jesus. And for whatever reasons, those have a hard time coinciding in today's society.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what would you like to see change in the relationship between churches and our homelessness crisis?
I mean, honestly, just more awareness. I mean, more awareness when you play those nice videos in church that you're going to help these nonprofits do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many times that I've sat in the audience in the pews and I see these videos and I think, oh my gosh, they're going to really help that nonprofit. When now that, like I said earlier, when I'm sitting on this end, that's not always the case. You know, yes, they help, but are they truthfully helping with the way the church thinks they are?
Right.
I feel like they put more work into painting the picture of what they're going to do than what they actually do.
Let me ask you, because I'm a practical kind of gal. I'm a fixer. I'm a doer. What, like, if we could implement some sort of program where it's like once a month, this church collects laundry detergent. Once a month, this church collects towels. Once a month, this church. With something very practical. Hey, on the first Sunday of the month, this church, please bring in, or hey, on the first of the month, we're going to give it to you. We're going to collect it all month. And this church is going to do soap. This church is going to do shoes. This church is going to do bikes. This church is going to do like something like that. Do you think?
We started, look, I launched this thing doing what I called Sock Sunday. Because I knew when I was homeless, even if I couldn't bathe, if I could put on a new pair of socks and underwear, I felt like
a
the
new
angels
man.
are singing, right?
Yeah.
And most people will never understand what that feels like unless you've been homeless or a soldier. And I've done both, okay? We simply said, I've never pastored an affluent church. Mine were people middle class or just below middle class. And I said, look, we need socks. We need white socks that don't have any dyes in them. We're going to do next Sunday, we're going to do Sock Sunday. I'm just asking everybody or every family to bring 1 6-pack of fresh new socks to church.
Just one pack.
That took off. And then we did Undy Sunday. And it took off. And for years, we still have some churches in West Orange County that are doing this. And then some of them have turned it into where next time we're going to do this. And they said, what's your greatest need? And so that's a very easy way to get people about. I think also is that we make ourselves available for public speaking, from anything from sitting in your living room with your small group to sitting in front of thousands. And let's talk about people's concerns and what is real and what is not. Because again, we're so swayed now by media at times. And I'm not one to say it's fake media. I think that just overstates something. But we do have media now that leans to the right or leans to the left. So they're going to swing it to the way. And you start to believe that everybody thinks like you do because the only thing you watch is Fox.
Well, that's intentional because an algorithm's a real thing.
It sells advertising and it builds followers just like we're trying to do.
I lean very conservative, very Christian conservative. My news feed is going to feed me. So it's called the feed, what I want to see. I'm not seeing posts about American immigrants that are legal, that are leaving just out of fear. They're not going to show me that.
No.
They're going to show me the gang members that are being deported. That's what I want to see. And that's going to get them the click.
And then you start to believe, some people start to believe, well, they're all gang members.
Correct.
And they're
or the other way. Or it's
the
all
other
families and all babies and innocent people.
So, it's kind of like the when the things happened the other day, there's been a lot of changes in our government the last few weeks. And I purposely sit there and I monitor like 4 different channels. I do the local, I do CNN, I do Fox, I do MSNBC. Yes, thank you. And a couple things in between. And it makes my family crazy at times because I'm really wanting to see what everybody's view.
It's like news Tourette's.
And it's really interesting when you see it is without the cussing, but I throw that in there too sometimes.
That's you. You're the one doing the cursing.
I'm doing the cursing. Okay. but trying to stay well-rounded in my thoughts
Yeah.
and my finger on the pulse of what's going on. But when I see then responses to some of my posts, it's very interesting that people will bring things into it that had nothing to do with my
Nothing to do
post.
with it. Yeah.
And they want to blame it on Biden or Trump or whoever they, their flavor of the day is. And it's like, did you even read the post?
It's just that trigger, right? Everyone's
Yeah.
so, and I think,
My favorite is I heard.
oh my word.
Okay, I heard that. Well, where'd you hear that?
Well, they say.
They
Who's
said.
they?
Who's they?
Who is they?
Yeah. Wouldn't you want they to be in charge? Apparently they are, because they're doing this. And I'm going, yeah.
Well, here we go.
Okay.
Here's a good one. You're gonna love this one. Some people believe their donations to the local church or like a synagogue, along with the taxes they pay, are enough to support not-for-profits like Matthew's Hope. Is that the truth?
Not even a little.
Not even close.
No, I mean our
God, we're gonna get so much bad mail right now.
yeah for this one
You know
episode.
what you need though?
I mean,
Rick?
really, one.
Do you remember the old show? It's Tool Time. Like, remember that? And he would say, and Al would have it like, oh, if you have a complaint, send it to, and they would just put like the address. That's what we need.
We have a hall in Brevard. We have a long hallway off Medical that goes to a black door that leads outside.
Then that's
And
where
we
it's gonna
tell
go.
people that's where the HR department
That's
is.
HR.
That's where the complaint department is, and what have you. And the door slams behind you if you go out there because it's a heavy door.
Auto
Yeah,
locks.
look, we are not
Yes, it does.
here. Well, yeah, and it locks you out. We are not here to beat up on anybody. And I realize there's people that's all they're going to hear. What they need to hear is we need to open our hearts and our minds and then stop again. If you're going to claim to be a Christian, shouldn't there be some fruit that recognize? I mean, I was thrown out of 3 churches. Okay.
Me too.
All right.
High five for the
well,
rebels.
but I was on staff, so it's a little more work to get done. But how I got through mainly was challenging people, because I was that guy again that came out of seminary, ready to take on hell with a pistol. And I'm sitting there going, but shouldn't the general public be able to see the light on the hill without saying that we're a light on the hill?
Well,
right?
you have to say it.
If you got to shine your own light,
right. If you have to say it, like it's like it's like if anyone says, "Well, I'm so rich or I'm wealthy," I'm like, "Well, then you're not."
then you're not.
A minute or if someone says, "I'm a CEO," I'm like, "You're not.
No.
You're not really."
I tell people about being a CEO. It simply means that when everybody else gets to go home, I go to prison. Okay, that's what it means. If we don't, I had someone said the other day, well, you should be audited. And I said, well, in all due respect, we are audited every year independently. Yeah. We have to.
For sure.
And if they'd be startled to know we spend about $30,000 every year. Well, that's not for our CPA. That is just for the independent audit. So
that's for the 501c3, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm doing that this year for the first time. So you're going to have to help me with that, because I'm doing it for
the good news for you is not until you go over $3 million. You just have a card you do. I missed the card day.
I have the card. Yeah.
Okay. I tried to quit doing it a few years ago because I looked at this expense and my God, I could hire somebody.
Okay. Right.
And they said, well, unfortunately, Scott, because you're over 3 million now, you have to do it.
You have to do it.
And it wasn't. Now, the other thing I would tell people is because this is just an opportunity to throw this in here. Go to guidestar.org.
Say it again.
GuideStar.
GuideStar.
I make it one word, .org. Mm-hmm. And GuideStar is a clearinghouse of nonprofits where you can go in there and you could find out, if you want to take the time, almost anything you want to know about any legitimate nonprofit.
Oh, I've heard about this because then it'll tell you like how much the CEO actually makes, how much they spend on like administrative fees, how
transparent they are.
How transparent they are.
We are on our 15th year of transparency at platinum level. That's the highest level you can get.
So crushing it.
We're crushing it.
I love that.
If anything, they always say we say too much.
Well, what I've taken away from this little chat, which thank y'all so much for having me, by the way. I've learned so much, and I was really excited to come today and really speak from a perspective of someone that doesn't volunteer and hasn't had the tour and doesn't really know everything, it's to give directly to you guys. That's what I'm hearing you say is to just be direct.
Whether it's us, because I don't want to turn this a commercial for Matthew's Hope. It's our podcast. We invest in having this podcast. We invest in our magazine moving forward for people to see and read and understand what we're doing. But our issue, quite honestly, is a nationwide issue. There's nothing we're doing that someone can't do somewhere else. I've duplicated it. I could duplicate it again. Now, people need to understand what it takes to do that. But it's more of a bigger conversation. Because I just had a woman say, "Well, I'm with the pickleballers because I don't want us to look like San Francisco." Well, I don't know what the pickleballers have to do with it really, and the people or the homeless in the park, other than the fact that say there's conflict there. But not wanting something doesn't fix it.
Yeah,
Okay?
just
I
you
don't.
don't want to see
I
it.
don't want to have cancer. But some of
The
us are going
cancer
to get
doesn't just
cancer.
magically
Yeah,
go away.
and it
Yeah.
doesn't say, "Well, I don't want you." Like it's going to go away. There's nothing that's happening here that's going to go away on its own. It's going to require the public and private sector to have these open conversations, to own our own crap. One thing I live on daily, and I would suggest it for all people. You may not like me, you may not like what comes out of my mouth, but I'll never lie to you. I will tell you right up front. I'm going to say controversial things at times, but if you ask the questions, I will sit there and have the conversation. As long as you're not a belligerent asshole.
Yeah. So
Pastorally
you're not the
speaking.
guy that I should go, do I look fat in this? Did these chains make my butt look big? Because you're going to be like, yes, Mindy.
No, because you're a woman, and as a man, there's certain questions that I should never answer.
Because you're married and you've learned.
Well, I tell you what, you just sit there and go, "Oh, okay." My stepdaughter this morning came out and she goes, "Well, now that I've gotten fat," and I go, "Oh, sir, you aren't fat," and she goes, "Well, since I've gained weight," I said, "Well, you've just filled out," and I went, "That didn't help." There's no way out of this, right?
No.
There's no way out of
There's
this.
no way out of it.
But now put the Taco Bell down, right? Sorry.
You just have to feign being deaf.
Yeah, and you guys, I apologize to you. See, first off, I am ADD as all get out, and
Didn't notice.
so what happens is when I'm sitting here, sometimes you don't get to see our producer John in the background, but I'll have a tendency to move my cup. I do things that are part of my own mental illness that I'm very aware of, but I realize it can make other people a little bit crazy. So if you want to have a lot of fun, invite me to come preach because it's going to be a great sermon. But don't be surprised that when I sit down in the middle of it and start talking to somebody, because it has happened. Okay. Or I thought of something that has nothing to do with what we're doing. It has happened. The nice thing about this podcast is that it is a place of honesty. It's a place of dealing with hard issues. It's a place that we want to give people the opportunity to ask their question. There's no question that's too hard for us. There might be a time where say, we don't have an answer for that one. Or there might be a time we're going to give you an answer you don't like. But just because you don't like it doesn't make it less true.
Right. It doesn't make
Okay.
it not true. Exactly.
And so I think we need to, as a whole, I'm the last person that should be preaching to anybody. My list of failures over my almost 63 years is longer. If I was in a poker game, I couldn't play my way out of it. But at the same time, my hope is that each of us learn from our failures and our shortcomings, learn about the power of the people around you, and say, I'm not that good at that, but Shelley's really good at that.
That's right.
And we start teaming up together, and then we make the central focus Christ and our faith in him.
You can't fail.
You absolutely cannot fail.
You literally can't.
It may not look like you thought it was going to look like, but you absolutely cannot.
That's right. Well, that was awesome. Thank you guys so much. Just, of course, always for all that you do. Thank you to everyone who watched and listened. If you want to be a part of this amazing ministry and you want to support the efforts of Matthew's Hope, please visit matthewshopeministries.org. Help us spread the word by liking, sharing, and subscribing to this podcast. And we'll see you next time. Bye.